ladies and gentlemen? It is I, Emily Sophia, here to break down for you guys the latest episode of True Detective. So we are going to be talking about Down Will Come, as in Down Will Come Baby, Cradle and All. And spoiler alert before I dive into the mad thick of things, as I shall be bearing all in this review. And just so you guys know, I recently uploaded my latest review of Hannibal. Pretty crazy episode, Dolce, for those of you who are keeping up, as well as a joint review for the new trailers for Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead Season 6. So, find those on my channel. Just posted them the other day. But anyways, we have some fish to fry, don't we? So let's get right down to it. Now, I just watched the episode mere minutes ago, and man, I'm still feeling a little bit shaky from the final 10-minute freaking bullet spray fest that we got. I mean, nothing in the episode felt like it was leading up to something so freaking all out brutal, but man, ooh, man, words are not coming right now. That usually happens a couple of times throughout my vlogs, but at this particular time, I am feeling somewhat compromised, but I'm going to do my best to encapsulate the events of the episode. I guess if I was to try to sum things up from my perspective, kind of the pervading theme for all of our different characters and the things that they've been going through is that sometimes, no matter what you do, it is not enough. This is something that's actually stressed by multiple characters throughout the episode, such as with Paul, when he's stuck in traffic with Ray and attempting to, in semi-vague terms, come to grips with all of the things that have happened to him in recent months, what with the scandal with the celebrity who has compromised his professional reputation, what with his crazy night out and losing his bike, which is really tethered to his identity. And he says, you know, you do what they say and it doesn't matter, is something that he stresses, that he follows the rules. He has done everything to get by and get through, and I think has attempted to surmount a lot of struggles, as we've seen with Annie, kind of trying to divorce herself from her family, from her upbringing, to become someone more, to become more than the sum of her broken parts. And I think that that's something that really speaks to what's been happening in Paul's head and heart. And we kind of see that too with the character of Frank, who is busting his ass to get himself back in the game, which for him means completely backtracking from this giant deal that he was going to put forward. He's going back to clubs, to moving drugs, essentially anything he can do to put himself in the clear and in fact avoid bankruptcy, evidently. So apparently this guy's spending habits have not been exactly up to snuff, but he is realizing that, I mean, certainly he's trying to pursue as many avenues as he possibly can of success and putting himself back in the clear, but it's again that kind of idea that no matter what you do, sometimes there is always something that's missing. There's always something askew, something that's going to eat you up inside, some water spot on the ceiling prompting you to recall your traumatic childhood and bashing rats in the dark basement. I mean, that's kind of how I'm feeling at this point. And it also speaks to what's happening with Ray, who is being forced away from his son and is doing the best he can to impart to him a sense of his identity as is rooted in his father. Ray seeing himself as that true father, that true detective, true father. Double whammy. But yeah, I mean, I think that that certainly covers and speaks to a lot of the crises that we are witnessing in this episode, as well as the show in general. And it's that kind of like the best laid schemes of mice and men go often awry, that kind of literary ordeal. Now, first of all, I'm going to begin with my criticisms so that I may move forward and discuss other things about the episode. But here's the deal. I know a lot of people have been complaining about the writing style of Nick Pizzoretto, he is crafted this season in general, as he did the former season. And I think that the epiphany that I came to over the course of watching this, especially with watching Vince Vaughn / Frank struggle through the grand poetics, I think it was in that scene where he and his wife were meeting with the potential investor guy at the bar, and Frank says something like he feels like he's been kicked into warp speed and is trying to see through the blur, and just so many of the words that pass through his lips don't seem to fit this character. I think what made the first season so successful, hello consonants, you are not supposed to be there. I think what made the first season so successful was the fact that the characters that Nick crafted spoke really well to his literary style as a writer. And it fit and it meshed the worldviews of the characters and their approaches to things. Like they resonated with the dialogue, and so every line delivery was so fabulous and so fascinating to dig into. Whereas we've seen pretty much all of our lead characters sort of speak these poeticisms, like Annie when she goes to visit her sister after talking to one of the Chisani girls, and she says that I think this line was given in the trailer for the season originally, the one where she says what is it the memories, like I tweeted it earlier, this is aggravating, like you don't remember the memories but they remember you. I'm going to use my cheat sheet of my phone. Yeah, these moments, they stare back at you. You don't remember them but they remember you. I had somebody tweet me very, very indignantly stating that they are officially fed up with the show because of that line. And I mean, it is kind of strange, and for as beautiful and provocative as those lines are, and for as much as I feel like I would love to read them like in a written form, it's hard to say how much it fits with the show or with the characters even. I think like it seems like Paul hasn't had as much of those quotable moments per se, but they do feel somewhat out of place on occasion, and I would not chalk up the strangeness of the line delivery to bad acting on the parts of Rachel McAdams or Vince Vaughn or Taylor Kitsch or Colin Farrell. I would just say that, like, I don't know. Do you guys understand what I'm getting at? That it doesn't seem as if the type of dialogue that's being delivered fits the deliverers of the dialogue? Does that resonate? I don't know. That's kind of the way that I'm feeling. Especially with the character of Vince Vaughn. Or the character of Frank Semyon, played by Vince Vaughn. Apologize. But, like, the conclusion that I have come to is that Vaughn and these particular poetics are kind of like shaken oil and water. They dance around each other, all the bubbles, as imagine shaking up a cylinder that's got oil and water in it, and you see all the little bits are kind of swimming about and bumping against each other, but then ultimately the two liquids separate. It's just like, I don't know if that works or is as compelling. Doesn't always feel organic. So that's kind of the point of frustration for me, is just the imagery and the metaphors, perhaps a bit on the thick side. I would say maybe they should be even used a bit more sparingly. Of course, that's just kind of my suggestion as a viewer, and nobody is going to hear my complaints and do anything about them. And I'm going to deal with it. I will endure and survive. I mean, I think that Nick is a crafter of gorgeous and luscious prose. But it comes on a little bit too thick in the forms of these characters that we see in this setting and place and circumstances. I don't know, man. Let me know what you guys think about that. You are fully entitled to disagree. Maybe I'm completely off base. Just general gist. Anyway, so let's talk about where everybody is at and attempt to gather ourselves in light of that incredibly violent shooting. I mean, after some of the surreal elements that we got in the previous episode with the dream sequence that Ray Velcoro had and all these things, I wasn't so sure how the show was going to choose to up the ante next. Of course, they get a suspect in the Casper murder case, and they go for it, and the results are terrifying. Of course, all of this comes in the midst of these protests about the defunct subway and public transportation system, and then everything is completely turned on end in that instance, and we see a lot of officers go down, but made it out alive amazingly with all of our characters. A lot of expendable hits, for sure. Of course, it's good to see all of our core characters working together under pressure, and yeah, this is what they're trained for, and yeah, this is what they essentially have to do. But it's crazy that this ending comes in the midst of so many personal tragedies and struggles, and so that it all culminates in this incredibly bloody and explosive traumatic event is just, whoa, man. It's definitely going to take the week for that dust to settle. So until that point, I am first going to discuss the character of Paul, who is breaking my heart right now and is so utterly driven to deny his own identity that he is very ill-advisedly and haphazardly starting a family with his ex-girlfriend, now bride-to-be, because he wants to be a dad and husband to a wife because he can't handle the situation with his war buddy, who evidently he hooked up with after the night of drinking. He doesn't recall a thing, and he clearly takes the pressure of that encounter very seriously. We see him breaking down on the sidewalk and just utterly devastated by his he refuses the waffles and watching the game and hanging out the night after. This is for him nothing to celebrate. And then of course he's chased down by the paparazzi and luckily gets the chance to kind of debrief with Ray about everything that's transpired. But man, is it just... It sucks. It sucks because we know just how wrong all of this is going to go. Of course, the thing that he least expects to hear from Emily is Emily her name? The name that is my own as well. I think that's the name of his lady friend, but so he seizes upon her pregnancy as his out. This is his opportunity to escape this shadow life that seems to be hot on his heels. And in fact, you know, he says something interesting earlier on in the episode about how it's so difficult, if not impossible, to be out in the world, which is very much a little bit of a cover-up for, of course, the fact that he is unable to feel like he can come out. I don't know exactly how Ray takes that, but he says, you know, everybody has trouble coming out in the world. Like, just existing in this public sphere. It's not for the faint of heart. And yet it is something that is required of virtually every living human being. I think that discussion in the car, I think, was a favorite moment of mine from the episode for sure. But yeah, like, it, on the surface, you would think, boy, this is great. Oh boy, oh golly gee, Paul gets to be a daddy-o, and he is establishing a life for himself. But this is, in fact, a separation from who he truly is that I think is going to, you know, bring everything to heal quicker than he realizes. So, yeah. It's kind of ironic to consider that, whoops, Paul is going to be a dad maybe when we are looking at the situation of Frank with his wife, and thus far they have been unable to conceive an offspring in the traditional sense, prompting his wifey to say, hey, let's look at alternatives, prompting Frank to say, oh, another dog. God, what kind of boneheaded dad to be is this mobster lord guy? Man, I don't know. Honestly, I don't super much care for the character of Frank. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I'm just not super interested in what's happening with him. And I don't feel terribly sorry that he is coming under fire and is forced to turn to all of these, well, not only potentially alternative means of bringing a child into his family, but also achieving income and prestige and a legacy, yada, yada, yada. I don't care super much. How do you guys feel about that? I'm just not terribly compelled. It's like, wow, dude, that really sucks for you, but I'm much more interested in what's going on with our coppers from Vinci and beyond. Like, that's really kind of where my heart and brain are invested. And perhaps it's some of the weird, off-kilter, sometimes hokey delivery of lines, and it's just sort of like, okay, all right, so we're seeing how he's adapting and making do and attempting to push forward, but what's the point? I don't know. You might ask, like, why are you watching this season if you don't really care about this character? All right, I want to follow it through. I am interested to see how all of this is going to conclude. I'm invested enough to see the build up to that as well. So deal with it. But yeah, just kind of like tough bro. And we even see that he's trying to, he's driven to the point that he's attempting to bring Ray on full time into his, his posse. And this kind of doesn't really seem to rub Ray the right way. He doesn't want to be full-time a part of anything, per se. I mean, he's certainly one who is capable of adapting to difficult situations and applying himself where he has to. And even Annie's father has an interesting kind of spiritual revelation moment as he is told that he has an aura of green and black that is occupying the entire room. And he's must have lived hundreds of lives. He's like, I don't think I want another one. But yeah, I continue to find Ray's character one of the most rewarding to explore in the show, because like I said, for as much as he doesn't want to be a part of the world, and for as much as he wants to cease all striving, he's a solid source of wisdom. He's somebody that all of these different characters can talk to and come to. And so he's kind of a bridge between all of these disparate figures. And I think maybe that kind of plays into the idea of him having hundreds of lives, is that he kind of absorbs the lives around him and speaks into them whenever he has to or can. You know, he's not like the great altruist or like not Annie's father type of guy. But he is certainly a well of his own form of wisdom. And I like to see how all of the characters interact with him, you know? I think that's kind of in this sort of situation where we've got 4 different leads, I think a way to sort of judge how compelling and interesting a character is how much you want to see everybody else interacting with them. And that is definitely how I continue to feel about Ray Velcro. And of course, the relationship with his son, I continue to find very touching. It's almost the exact... We see that he's in a position that's almost the exact opposite of Frank, because Frank very much wants to have his own progeny. He wants, his sperm, his wife, all that jazz, all together to result in a human being that he will raise into some kind of empire. Whereas... Ray has taken this child whom we are almost absolutely sure is not his, and yet so thoroughly embraces this child as his own, as his progeny. So, yeah, you can kind of break down why that is exactly, why this different approach. And in fact, everybody seems to be birthing something in this episode, and unfortunately for Annie, I guess, shall we say, what she has given birth to is a lot of problems with stupid men in her department trying to nail her to the wall for having nailed them in varying circumstances. And Annie very much takes that in a discriminatory way, and senses that the hostility towards her has a great deal to do with her position as a woman, as a female superior. And so one of her inferiors, I don't know if that's the right term, but the Mercer guy who files the sexual harassment complaint against her, I think we don't exactly know. I mean, we really don't know what happened in the bedroom, but I think he feels overpowered, perhaps, and disgusted that Annie would simply walk out on him after whatever transpired. But yeah, so all of this comes as a major challenge to her power, her position of authority. But this position is for her life. She escaped from her past to come into this role, into this place. She is so no nonsense, so driven, so unswayed by the political subterfuge around her, and yet is essentially suspended. Yes, she is still playing a role in the murder investigation, but she has had kind of her agency robbed from her in this situation, and it's disgusting and upsetting. And okay, yeah, like she was with a guy who was below her, over whom she had power in the workplace, but this for her did not register as like, oh, I'm trying to get something out of you in our work. Whatever their relationship was, it didn't have to do with that. And so it's very much offensive for her and undermines, I think, everything that she has tried to build, and puts her in a much more vulnerable place than we have even seen her before. Another parallel, of course, like Velcro, she is also being pushed out of a place that is important to her, like he has been pushed out of his son's life. Yeah, so we sort of see these legacies in crisis, and all of these strivings to do right, to feel accepted, to feel okay. A lot of that has fallen very violently by the wayside. And so all of this reaches an enormous fever pitch at the end of the episode that continues to ring in my brain. I think that we're definitely ramping up for some kind of big conclusion. I hope that we continue to see some of the other fascinating dream-like artistic elements that we've seen in episodes past. But yeah, so there continue to be so many things to analyze, and character dynamics that are boggling my brain. Other things aren't quite as satisfying as I had hoped, but I'm still gonna continue to stick this out. And yeah, I mean, let me know what you guys thought about the episode. Anything that I happened to miss and fail to address completely, please bring that up below in the comments. I will do my best to respond to as many as I can. So yeah, we will talk more next week. And as always, I will be back before you know it.